What I have here is a 2005 Chrysler Crossfire, and our transmission is in fail-safe mode. And we have a P0753 shift solenoid A electrical, and they replaced the the connector that goes into the transmission, and it was leaking fluid out of there. And we have no communication with the powertrain control module and no communication with the transmission control module, but we do have communication through the OBD2 direct, and that's where we're getting our code. I disconnected the TCM or the transmission control module and scan it again, and we still have that P0753 shift solenoid A electrical. And I got my wire diagram here, and I already checked, made sure that the connector was assembled properly and all the wires are where they're supposed to go. What I did notice on the TCM connector was transmission fluid in it, and when that connector leaks, it goes through the wiring, and as you see here, there's transmission fluid in this connector. We had transmission fluid in here. I already cleaned it out, and the connection that goes for that one is the end one right here. And these two connectors were full of transmission fluid, and this little relay box was partially engulfed with a little bit of transmission fluid. So I already cleaned this out, and I'm going to go ahead and reassemble everything and continue with the testing. I should have started filming earlier on the diagnosis process, but here we are. No communication. TCM, PCM found some transmission fluid, and it does travel through the wiring. I've seen this before on old Mercedes vehicles, and actually this Crossfire has a Mercedes transmission 722.6 unit in it, and whenever they leak through there, you see the same issue. See that transmission fluid? I'm going to go ahead and clean this out and see if we get communication with it now. Okay, here I'm inside the vehicle, and as we can see here, these wires are saturated with transmission fluid as well. There's a spot of transmission fluid there, and this TCM connector that goes to the solenoids, it's also a little wet with transmission fluid. It did not protrude inside of the TCM. It's a little moist, but it did not go inside of the TCM. I already opened this up, and it's dry inside. But the connector, it's wet with transmission fluid. This is very normal when that seal leaks. It travels through all the wiring, and I've seen the Mercedes vehicles that this transmission goes underneath the TCM control module, goes underneath the hood in the TCM box or in the computer boxes, and sometimes I see the TCM, it's all the way up with transmission fluid. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug everything back in, and this is what I use to clean my connectors. It works pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and spray this on the contacts and clean this up, plug everything back together, and see if we have communication after that. Okay, I am in OBD2 Direct, and the code did not want to clear. Let's go to stored codes. No codes are stored in module. Okay, I think we are about to communicate. I'm going to go ahead and escape the OBD2 Direct. I'm going to go to Chrysler, and we're going to go from here. I think we're going to have luck with this. Start new session. All except below. Okay, my key's on. (2005) Chrysler Crossfire with a 722.6. So 2005 722.6 Mercedes transmission. Now let's see if we can communicate now with it. Okay, let's go to control unit, powertrain. Let's go to the engine control module. I had no communication with no computers whatsoever, and the vehicle was still start and run, but the transmission was in fail-safe mode. High gear starts. Okay, let's go ahead and read codes. Okay, we're still not communicating. One other module is probably affected here. Let's go to the transmission control module. It's taking too long to communicate. There's no communication still in the system. Shift lever assembly, it does have a module. It's not communicating with that either. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start the vehicle and continue checking. Now I'm gonna have to check my CAN system, controller area network. I'm gonna see if the transmission performs the way it should right now, and we go from there. Okay, here what I'm looking at, I got my channel 1 on the red and light green wire that comes from the box, from the relay box, fuse number 1, and that feeds on to the transmission control module. And then I got my lead channel 2 on pin number 38, the red wire. That's my feed voltage for my solenoids, and I have to have battery voltage going out to there on pin number 6. And as you can see here, the transmission control module is not being capable of producing 12 volts that I need for my shift solenoids to operate. We got 3.92 volts, as you see here, and we do have good ground, and we do have good power. The vehicle is running right now. We have 14.04 volts, which is system voltage, and of course we have good ground, otherwise we wouldn't have that voltage. And here is the ground for the transmission control module, that brown wire. And basically on one connector you have only 3 wires going in. You have a power and the ground, and the SEI transmit that goes to the data link connector. Is the dark green is the leftover wire. You see we got 1, 2, and 3 wires going into that one connector, and then the other connectors, they go to the transmission assembly. And here we have all the solenoids. This is our transmission. We have our speed sensors, N1 and N3, and the transmission temperature sensor. All of this is inside the transmission itself. It doesn't have a vehicle speed sensor on the transmission. It does have it on the differential, and that's why it is very important for the computers to communicate from one to another. And then we have our CAN bus positive and CAN bus negative, but that's another little connector on the side right here. SEI transmit and SEI receive, positive and negative for our CAN system. And this connector goes to our solenoids, and this connector goes to our power, ground, and the data link connector. So what's the issue here? Transmission control module is not capable of producing enough voltage for our solenoids to work properly. What we can do here, we can induce 12 volts on our solenoids, and we go from there. Okay, before we condemn the transmission control module, even though it's not capable of producing 12 volts, I have my power probe here, 3.8, and my Vantage 3.89. This is the output voltage for the solenoid. So the top is the system voltage. The vehicle is not on right now, that's why it's 12.43. When the vehicle is running, it's at 14 volts. So before we continue with it, I'm going to check the continuity for all the solenoids right here at the TCM. Instead of crawling underneath the vehicle, we're going to do it through the TCM. We're going to put one end, actually the power, we're going to put it on the red wire, which is the feet voltage for our solenoids, and then we're going to check every single solenoid individually. If we look at our wiring diagram here, we have system voltage on one end. So one end of the meter is going to be on the red wire, and then we're going to go wire by wire to check all of these solenoids inside of the transmission itself here at the TCM connector. Okay, so looking at the wiring schematics here, the resistance from the power feed to the other end of the solenoids, 6.2 on one, 6.0 on the other, 3.3, 5.0, 5.1, and 5.4, and only we have one with low resistance, which is the TCC PWM modulated solenoid, and then the rest of them should be close enough, and they should be 2.5 to 6.5 ohms, and everything, all these solenoids are within range, so we don't have an issue with the solenoids. Our issue here is going to be with the transmission control module, and I have here what voltage should we have on pin number 6, which is the red wire, which is this wire right here. We should have system voltage, and we don't even have 4 volts there. So the TCM is not capable of producing system voltage there. So our TCM, it's our culprit here. TCM is damaged. And why did it get damaged? Transmission fluid contamination. Okay, so let me show you here how I check the resistance on those solenoids. Okay, here I am on the gray with black stripe wire, which is our TCC PWM solenoid, and we have 3.3 ohms in resistance. The red wire, it's our feed voltage, which is one end of the solenoid, and then the computer grounds each individual solenoid. Now let's move to another wire here. Okay, let's go to the green wire with a yellow trace. 6 ohms resistance is within the range. I have already checked the rest of them, and they are all within range.